Welcome back friends, welcome back to strategic management. In my preceding segment, I talked about resources, capabilities and core competence. Before that, I mentioned about organizational life cycle and we talked about how organizations look at them with the perspective of life cycle stages. Now, I am adding to that discussion particularly with reference to whatever understanding we have built till now, because this is going to help us in strategic choices. And one more logic of putting up this particular discussion on industry life cycle here is that we have just talked about resource based model and industrial organizational model as such. So, it is pertinent for us to think about that do industries, do they have life cycles as such, and if they have, can we foresee or think a relationship between organizational life cycle and industry life cycle as such? It is logical to do that, it is logical to think about that, because if industry has a life cycle space wherein it is growing, for example, and organization is not growing, that means there is meant to be a correlation within that sphere. Either we are not utilizing our resources well, or we are not defining our capabilities and we are not developing our core competencies, or somehow we are in a wrong industry for that matter. So, that is how we have to think about that, and we definitely look into those kind of things when we look into the models we have just discussed. So, but let us look at how authors they have tried to define industry life cycle and what we can learn out of it in correlation with whatever we have discussed and organizational life cycle especially. Now, you see, the product life cycle, industry life cycle has an origin in product life cycle discussion also, because most of the discussions we have had around life cycle in business studies is associated with product life cycles. So, it has definitely a root as far as product life cycle goes, and the reference is Klepper, Industry Life Cycles, Industrial and Corporate Change. This is the reference we are using here. So, the product life cycle was originally introduced as a marketing concept, but soon gained popularity in different aspects of academia, which authors say, and product life cycle you all know. And if you want to further dwell into that, there are several subjects on marketing which are running now, and my subjects on innovation in marketing, marketing of innovation, product and brand management, and even integrated marketing communication also has those elements associated with product life cycle. So, the product life cycle was originally introduced as a marketing concept, but soon gained popularity in different aspects of academia. It became a lens through which different disciplines started viewing and exploring the evolution happening in different industries. Product life cycle was popularized by the works of Dean 1950, Levitt 1965, Vernon 1966 and Cox 1967 among others, and you would find those videos also, those descriptions also, and lot of literature on this kind of a discussion. Now, a major feature of product life cycle, as the authors say, is a major feature is identified by different thinkers was that it offered a similar view towards the evolution of an industry across different disciplines. How that thought process can be seen with the perspective of industry life cycle. Organizational life cycle we have talked about. So, at this moment I would strongly suggest that you create 3 two-dimensional graphs wherein you may draw product life cycle taking it from anywhere, draw an organizational life cycle also taking it from the preceding discussions we have had. Now, start drawing an industrial life cycle graph with the perspective of what we are discussing right now. Try to look at them parallelly and you would realize what I am trying to express here, and then I would try to complicate those graphs when I would be talking about cross industry life cycle, that is value web based kind of a discussion later on, not right now, and sort of that complexity in that thought would simplify our thought process, and that would be the time I presume that we would be clearly looking at things with the perspective we are trying to build up here. Now, Oliver Williamson considers the view of economists towards the evolution of new industries into 3 stages. So, several authors have contributed into this thought process. So, the author has tried to take clue from Oliver Williamson, and he says that this included an early Williamson talked about the evolution of industry into 3 stages, including an early exploratory stage, an intermediate development stage, and a mature stage. Another view came from the business strategy used in medical imaging products when Dr. Philip Drew considered the evolution of industry through stages described as embryonic, growing, mature and aging. Definitely he is a doctor, so he talked about with that kind of a perspective, which makes sense also. So, exploratory, intermediate and development and mature, and he talks about embryonic, growing, mature and aging, but both of the thought processes imply a cyclical kind of a development in terms of industry goes, a progression should I say. Then the author talks about, Kepler talks about, and here we have taken clue from Cohen also, wherein the 2 points after the first point are taken from Cohen. So, Cohen SK 2010 Innovation Driven Industry Life Cycles, Encyclopedia of Technology and Innovation Management, page 69 to 76. So, but the first point we have taken from Kepler, wherein he says a more famous view about the industry life cycle came from William Abernathy and James Utterback, which was also called AU model. So, he has given us three kinds of perspective: Williamson, Dr. Drew and William Abernathy and James Utterback. The other Cohen, for example, he talks about this model maintains the industries evolve from a fluid to a specific state. Now, he adds to this basically when he talks about, because Kepler talks about this in 1997, Cohen talks about this in 2010. So, he says that this life cycle model suggests, maintains that industries evolve from a fluid to a specific state. That is also an important observation should I say. So, specific state and its progression is punctuated by a transition period. So, if you will look into the expressions of others whom we have discussed, the great authors, and with reference to Cohen's description, fluidity to specificity, then you would realize that again a cyclicity is there. The three stages are distinguished, further says Cohen, the three stages are distinguished mainly by relative emphasis given to product or process innovation. Definitely the origin of industry life cycle comes from product life cycle, as the authors say, and there is an organizational life cycle perspective associated with that. So, definitely product or service drives this thought process. The larger the sales volume, the span of the industry depends upon what you produce, how you produce, for how long you produce. Definitely it depends upon product and process innovation. Then further Cohen says that the first stage or fluid stage, the firms in the industry competes to get user interest and define the core concepts for product design. So, that is where this fluid stage comes in. Basic choices like whether an automobile should have an open or closed body, or whether an aeroplane should have fixed or movable wings, are the dilemmas that create the focus for competition. Having competitive perspective, competitive landscape, this is how industry is developing, the players are thinking. The entry barriers in this stage are fewer and rate of entry hence is higher. The industry is said to be in a transition stage when the majority of firms adapt to common design elements in response to user feedback and through learning from their competition. Now, wherein this transition stage is expressed in AU model, the other models talk about an intermediary stage, wherein if you will remember the first expression by Williamson or Dr. Drew and so on. So, there is a coherence between this thought process and their thought process. This results in the emergence of dominant designs in the industry. These are the designs that satisfy the need of the most users. Now, you see there is a standardization that mobile phones generally would look like that. Just an example, a dominant design does not mean that it is superior, nor does it limit the competitors to identical products, and that is how transition stage comes in. Once the rate of process innovation surpasses that of product innovation, so process innovation has grown big and it has surpassed the product innovation, the industry is said to have reached the specific stage, stabilizing. Here the production process becomes more specialized, automated and standardized throughout the industry, and here people start producing in large numbers. The whole of the industry is growing and moving ahead and probably saturating after a particular kind of a stage. It depends upon several kinds of factors. So, firms start looking for cost advantages through scale economies as the market begins to expand. In this stage, the larger firms become more efficient and barriers to entry rise, weaker firms exit, leading to more consolidation. Imagine computer industry, it has reached to this kind of a stage wherein very specific players are there. Imagine mobile industry, it is about to reach to that, hopefully in not very soon, but still. Imagine two-wheeler industry, it is like that. Imagine even automotive industry at large, it is like that. Aeroplane manufacturing reached at this kind of a stage long back, more or less. So, product innovation is going on, but definitely industry has reached to that kind of a stage. While a life cycle suggests, further the author says that while a life cycle suggests that there is a natural progression from birth to death, Abernathy and Utterback acknowledge that the stages might repeat if discontinuous innovation challenges an industry. Now, this is again an important thought, that how it gets disrupted. There can be products or process innovation that can make the incumbents' technological and organizational capabilities obsolete and can erode the established norms. So, here they acknowledge the fact that ultimately life cycle stages would be managed or would get prolonged in terms of for example, if it is let us say fluid stage or initial stage, wherein lot many people are coming and that industry is actually growing, if you will look at it with the perspective of growth, because of innovation. In transition stage also, that transition may be avoided or may be stabilized because of innovation and so on. So, they talk about innovation with this kind of a perspective. Now, Klepper again, he says that most views, however, consider the product life cycle to be a key determinant of the industry life cycle. The different views converge to give three major stages of the evolution of an industry, and that is the initial, exploratory or embryonic stage. Market volume is low. Now, he gives us the characteristics of these stages basically. Fluidity or initial stage, you may think of those two thought processes parallelly as of now, Klepper and Cohen. So, the initial, exploratory or embryonic stage, market volume is low, uncertainty is high, you never know what is going to happen. Several players are coming, technology is also getting developed in due course of time, and several environmental elements are also there, market expansion has to be done and so many things are to be there, and we have talked about those. So, uncertainty is high, the product design is primitive and unspecialized machinery is used to manufacture the product. It is initial phase, a fluid phase, an exploratory phase and so on. And here we would remember 5 forces also parallelly. So, you would realize the entry barriers or the competition and so on. In the second intermediate or growth stage, output growth is high. Now, things are standardizing, the design of the product begins to stabilize. More or less we have reached to a situation, because now we have stabilized the processes also. Product innovation declines, or I would not say decline, but is held back or is held for a while, so as to be utilized rationally at a later stage basically, or up till the efficiency of the present system gets justified, the effectiveness of the present system gets justified, or utilization of the present resources reach to a culmination wherein the innovation must be introduced after a particular kind of a stage. Many organizations, they deliberately do that despite of the stages that they have not fully utilized the present system, they deliberately do that, and we would be talking about that in Blue Ocean framework when we would be discussing that. So, product innovation declines as the author says, but I would add to this respectfully that it is held back, and the production process becomes more refined as specialized machinery is substituted for labor. This is almost it happens naturally. Stage 3, the mature stage, corresponds to a mature market. Output growth slows, entry declines further, market share stabilizes. You have a specific market share and you are not actually increasing that somehow, because industry size also gets stabilized. Innovations are less significant. People are trying to reach to the uphill, and the scope of innovation becomes reduced definitely until unless you go for disruptive and radical innovation, and for that you may definitely look into my subject on innovation marketing, marketing of innovation, wherein we have discussed that at length. And Further, author says that and management, marketing and manufacturing techniques become more refined. Standardization comes in, stability comes in. And this is most commonly known as PLC view of evolution, as the authors add. So, a very beautiful coherence between the concepts of product life cycle and industry life cycle has been done by the authors and several thinkers who have contributed in this space. Then Klepper adds a very interesting element to this, and he says that apart from these three stages, a shakeout stage also exists. This stage is characterized by the sharp drop in independent producers following the initial period of substantial growth in their number. So, large number of people enter into the situation, and then people who are doing exceptionally well, they keep on growing as far as cumulatively if we look into the industry life cycle goes, and few they get dropped out because they couldn't match as far as the whole situation goes, and the advancements which are required by the industry, they couldn't sustain somehow. And here comes the correlation of organizational life cycle with industry life cycle also, and definitely alongside product life cycle, which is the basis for these kind of discussions as such. Now, there are 2-3 examples which we may briefly discuss, and then I will quickly try to correlate the thought process associated with organizational life cycle and industry life cycle also. I would not go into the specific details of organizational life cycle because we have discussed that, and I would definitely prefer that you please access that video and look into that and then try to collate that discussion with this discussion as of now. So, now let us analyze the data from the following industries to understand their current industry life cycle stage. Video streaming services, very interesting example, and electric vehicles. So, Klepper is again referred to here. Now, look at this graph, video streaming subscribers by service. So, a blue line talks about expresses Amazon Prime Video subscribers, this dark blue line here second from the top, and this on top of it is the purple one is Netflix subscribers, and then there are several others. Red one is IQY subscribers, green one at the lowest level is Paramount subscribers, and so on. So, this is how this total industry is expressed in these in this graph from 2017 to 2018 in millions of users. So, cumulative size is huge, but just individual sizes are the range of, for example, 208 million users of Netflix currently, as far as currently, or let us say in 2022. So, this is how industry, but if you will look at this stage, you will realize the pattern here, and you will realize that it justifies the discussion we have just had, what Klepper talks about, what Cohen talks about, and so on. And if you will try to, at the same time, you will start thinking in terms of the organizational growth also. So, you would realize that Netflix, when video streaming industry was growing, Netflix paralleled its growth alongside video streaming industry. Amazon Prime also paralleled their growth with the video streaming industry as far as their organizational life cycle goes. For example, Netflix started from being a distributor of movies, and then they started adding features to their organization in terms of technology, in terms of producing their own content, in terms of streaming worldwide, in terms of in terms of everything what we now see Netflix as. For example, if you would appreciate, they have launched Kapil Sharma show on Netflix, which is now streamed in 192 countries all over the world, and so on. So, they have adapted some content which is very valid, which can be enjoyed by particular kind of an audience all over the world, and then definitely language bylines would be helping so many people to enjoy those shows despite of the fact they might not understand Hindi and so on, because today Indian movie stars they are largely viewed and appreciated globally by all sorts of audience, not only the Indian audience and so on. So, that is why with these language translation bylines, we can enjoy these kind of programs everywhere. For example, we are enjoying Trevor Noah and these kind of comedy shows in India as well. So, that is how Netflix is trying to universalize the content on the basis of the elements of the content which can be enjoyed by larger audience. Netflix has 208 million users. So in their organizational space, they are growing alongside the industry space. If you would realize, I would definitely suggest that you go to the graphs which we discussed about any other organization, and you access the graph for Netflix growth in terms of number of subscribers and sales from Statista, or in some of my discussions we have expressed those. Try to put up this graph alongside the Netflix graph, and you would realize that there is a coherence between organizational life cycle and industry life cycle in terms of video streaming industries, with a specific reference to Netflix, or you can do that with reference to Prime Videos also. And when you would do that with the perspective of, for example, we may choose Paramount, or we may choose any larger multinational subscriber, we may even choose YouTube premium subscribers and so on, then you would realize the kind of logic which these two life cycle situations have alongside each other. And then you would realize that it makes sense when we say that organization must grow alongside the growth of the industry. And if a new organization is coming with an industry space which is now in transition or stabilized largely, then what should they be doing? What should they be propelling in terms of innovation? For example, if Netflix would have entered recently, then what would they have been doing in terms of innovating upon their content, their streaming style, their icons, and several other kinds of software which they are developing for, as far as making it more user friendly, the algorithms which they have generated. So what they would have been doing if those would have been done by several others before them. So that would have been a different kind of a strategic orientation. So that is where choice of strategy is associated with both these life cycles in association with each other, definitely driven by the thought process which originates from product life cycle. Ultimately, Netflix is a service, and it can be looked at with the perspective of a product life cycle space as far as products or service goes. So that you can draw Netflix graph through a product life cycle understanding, through an organizational life cycle understanding, by adding on ingredients of an organizational life cycle to product life cycle, and adding on industry ingredients to these two graphs. So that is how these two things they come in. For organizational life cycle graph, if you try to put up that thought process alongside product life cycle graph, then you definitely have to add in terms of the kind of financial gains they have gone for, the kind of employees they have grown with, the number of employees, the kind of retention they have, the kind of acumen they have built up, all the characteristics which organizational life cycle graph must have. So, and that is where in billion users, this is how this industry is actually behaving in terms of, as far as billions of users go. It's to be 1.7 billion in 2027. Currently it is 1.4 billion users. It is almost 20% or around 20% of the world's population, which is very big. If video streaming has become so big, what kind of effect it is going to put on as far as other spaces of entertainment or other players of entertainment industry, that has also to be seen. How it would emerge, that is the point of discussion those industries must be having at this moment, and as the student of strategy we may definitely think about that. Now quickly switching over to electric vehicle sales worldwide. Now you see, battery electric vehicles and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, these are two streams as far as electric vehicles go. So battery electric vehicles in million vehicles is around currently it's 8.6 million vehicles, and in terms of hybrid electric vehicles it is 3.17 million vehicles as far as Statista says, a cumulatively 12 million kind of thing as far as the situation goes. Industry is in fluid stage, industry is in embryonic stage or just beyond embryonic stage, and this stage can be thought of with the perspective of capitalizing upon this opportunity by new players. Then Porter's 5 forces come into play. Any organization getting initiated at this moment, they may look at this with the perspective of industry attractiveness, which we have just seen. They can analyze their resources, capabilities and core competencies with reference to this industry in due course of time. They can create a vision. They must have a vision. They can create a business vision. They can look into mission associated with that business vision, objectives and goals and strategic steps associated specifically with this industry, and they can create an organizational life cycle graph, OLC graph for themselves alongside this projected industry life cycle graph, and then they can have product life cycle graph alongside these three graphs to understand how they would strategically develop their products, steer their organizations and capitalize upon the fluidity of this industry. Does it make sense? It does. And that is where I would specifically suggest that please use this graph, choose one of the organizations, for example Tesla Motors or Tata EVs, Tata Motors for in EV space, choose one of their products or two of their products, create two product life cycle graphs, draw organizational life cycle graph for this organization, specifically this company which is manufacturing that out of Tata Automotives or Tata organization as such, and then try to put up industry graph, or choose one or two products of Tesla Motors, draw product life cycle graphs, then draw Tesla organizational life cycle growth graph, and then this industry graph, industry life cycle graph. Try to look at these three in association with each other. You will immediately realize that something has to be done in terms of growing the product alongside growing the organization, using organizational growth for product growth and product growth for organizational growth, while capitalizing upon the industry growth and further contributing in the propulsion of industry growth so as to stabilize the industry growth and use it in your own favor, while creating larger entry barriers for people and for other organizations or future competitors and not letting them in. That is precisely what laptop industry or computer industry has done. That is precisely what mobile industry has done. That is precisely what agri processing industry is doing. That is precisely what garments industry or textile manufacturers have done. That is precisely what wristwatch industry has done. That is precisely what life insurance industry has done, and so on. So everyone is doing that, and let's also learn how to do it. I'll be catching up back with you with lot many insights on different kinds of aspects associated with our discussions which we have been having throughout in association with strategically managing value chains and subsequently value webs and management of strategy for prosperity and opulence. Keep this in mind, keep this thought in mind, keep nurturing that. I will be catching up back with you. Till then, goodbye.